Hello, I'm Nadia. I'm a mixed media artist, and today I want to talk about the painting challenge I did last year. This is kind of like a retrospective of just thinking back to how it went and, what I would do differently if I did it now, and also just a little bit of storytelling because the other videos from the challenge, if you check out my channel, are about specifically the process for each piece. So like I didn't really talk as much about why I decided to do the challenge or what my goals were. So at the time I was excited to just try something new, something that would really expand thinking about just everything that was possible. I mean, as a mixed media artist, I like to try new things, so it's not like I don't really shy away from that, but at the same time, I just was feeling like uninspired with my work, and like I had been pushing myself to make a body of work and it just wasn't quite working for me. I was working on these pieces of girls with their dolls using these old photos of Victorian era little girls, very serious little girls, and I was exploring themes of like kind of girls having to grow up like really young and like taking care of another person, even though they're dolls, like the way that they're carrying them and how serious they look. It's just all very like, feels like they're like little mothers already. And the references I made for them, I was really excited about. But after making like 4 or 5 of them, I felt like lost. I didn't know what to do next. And it really made me feel bad. So I was like, okay, now I don't feel like painting at all. Like, how do I get out of this rut? And to get out, I decided to do this 100 painting challenge. So I don't know where it originated from exactly. I was in the Milan Art Institute and they were talking about it there. I don't know if maybe this like kind of their version of it. But I mean, the idea is to make 100 paintings, but like very, in a short time span. So like only spend like a few minutes on each one, or like, I don't know, set some kind of timer so you're not spending too much time on them. And yeah, so I did that, and I kind of prepared a bunch of random materials and things I wanted to try, and I decided I would try to get it done in like a couple weeks. I think the challenge, at least the way it was presented to me first, was to just get it done in like a couple days. So really fast, but I decided I didn't quite want to do it that fast. Yeah, and I think it did help break me out of my rut. I realized that there's like so many different ways to use art supplies and so many like non-traditional things you can do. And I guess I also like tried to let go of that like idea that I need a style, which I mean, I think to sell work, it probably helps to have a recognizable style, but it's also like can get you really stuck and in your head and not able to make art if you're just like fixated on it all the time. So anyway, I will continue to kind of talk about that, but I wanted to go through the work I made. I don't have every single piece I made anymore. I'll admit that some of them were so bad that I threw them away. Which now I wish I hadn't, because it would have been better for this retrospective to go over all of them and actually like include the ones that really sucked. There's still some that suck. They're just not the like worst ones. The ones that look like actual poop. So anyway, you might recognize some of them from the process videos if you watch those. But this one was one of the first ones I did. I think I'm pretty happy with it overall, even it stands to the test of time. I would even try to like make other ones like this potentially. Like this one really, I think, shows my interest in like Kandinsky and his like bright colors and interaction of like geometric and organic shapes. I think he does a really interesting job with that. There's a Kandinsky painting hanging on my parents' wall since I was like a kid, so not surprising that I took some inspiration there. Of course, I made a little mistake here, so I kind of wish I hadn't done that, but oh well. So the next one, these might be slightly out of order from how they are in the videos, the challenge list, the playlist, but it should be pretty close. So this one was like charcoal with paint, like transparent acrylics, and I think I did some scribbles on top. So I don't know if I love how this shape, like the way it came out, like this weird L, like compositionally, I feel like it's a little bit funky. But I do think it's interesting how the charcoal kind of like blends in with the paint, and so you can like see certain marks there. I should probably take them out of these plastic sleeves so you can see it better. It looks like the plastic just wants to reflect, so you know what, I'll just take it out right now. So yeah, you can kind of see the way that it, maybe if I get my face out of it, yeah, the way that it blends in with the paint. Yeah, and you know, I like orange a lot. Like you'll see that in my color schemes a lot of the time. So I wonder if maybe I could take this piece somewhere further. It would be a little bit more interesting, or maybe like change the composition a little bit. Okay, moving on to this one. This one I was one of the oil pastel ones that I did. The green and the black are with oil pastels, and I used a stencil, so like that's why the shape is kind of like, I don't know, more like not perfect, but just I don't know how to describe it, but it would be hard to get those exact lines without a stencil. Anyway, so I feel like this one kind of turned out messy. Maybe too messy. It just, everything's kind of smeared, and I don't really like the brown with the green. But it is interesting how the oil pastels resist the paint. So I did learn that from working with this piece, and I ended up doing more like resist kind of stuff with some other ones that I did, especially because it's kind of cool with white oil pastel. You can like put it down first and it's like invisible, but then when you paint over it, you can like see where the paint like resists the oil pastels. I think this was the first one in the challenge where I used a palette knife with these like transparent acrylics. I have these acrylics here. They're like soft body. This color's like gladiator gold from Dynamic Distraction. They're very transparent, so that's why I like the effect here. I kind of like how the red or the orange and the brown kind of like lay over each other. Not sure how I feel about this scribble. I don't know if I did it again, I might not do that, but kind of happy that I went with the lines up there. Yeah, so palette knife, it makes like very different kind of shape, and it spreads the paint out so it's much thinner. All right, this one, I think this one was with inks, and I used salt, so like where there's like all these little dots, that's where I put salt in, and the paint like moves away from them, or the inks move away from them. And here I actually had like a piece of like textured paper, and I used it like a stamp. It was like this kind of floral looking thing, so you can kind of see the shape of it there. I think I also went over it with some marker. I kind of wish I hadn't like, I don't know what I did over here. It's kind of strange, but I do like the colors, the blue and the pink. I kind of like how that turned out. And some of the patterns. I think some of these patterns down here especially are interesting. Like maybe I'd even crop it like there, I don't know. Then it might be more interesting. Or maybe at the top. Yeah. All right, moving right along. This one definitely had a process video, but I think it cut off because my phone died or something. I think I spent way too long on this one because I can see even like little things I did, like in the oil pastel here, I made like little marks. I like cut, scraped into the oil pastel. And you can see there's like pencil marks. These are inks. I smeared them around. But I like these kind of like, there's something a little bit ominous about this one and the way the inks kind of spread and smear and these like thin little scribbles. This part kind of bothers me. I wish that I hadn't had that in it. But other than that, I think this is one of the more successful ones. By the way, if any of these pieces are interesting to you, they're not on my store, but I absolutely, they're absolutely available. So I am willing to kind of work with your budget if you're interested. I wouldn't price any of these higher than like $50 since they're all like, you know, quick little experiments. And you know, the shipping would be cheap since they're just paper. So yeah, hit me up at my email. I'll drop it down in the comments. So this one, I feel like I didn't record the full process of this one. I think I just recorded the part where I painted the face. But what was cooler with this piece was I added bubble wrap and I put bubble wrap down over paint and this like bright paint. And so it kind of looks like, I don't know, freckles or like her cheeks are flushed. So I think that turned out pretty interesting. And actually you can see there's a little bit of shading that I did, and like a few like green pencil marks. I think like close up this piece is a little bit more interesting. Alrighty. This one also had a video. I believe this was like painting 24 or maybe 25. This one was with a toothbrush. I think I still have the toothbrush. It says toothbrush right here. And I just like used it like a paintbrush. But then I think at the end I added like these swirls with watercolor. So some of the marks I think are kind of cool. I might have also used a fork at the end because some of these marks look like I might have made them with a fork too. Yeah. It's definitely good for creating texture. This one was my potato stamp one, and with each time I stamped the potato, I put like a different amount of paint on it or like slightly different color. So, I mean, I only used 2 colors, so it was like this iridescent purple with this kind of like skin tone. But I like how, you know, this one's really dark, and then some of the others have like a lighter impression. I think it's kind of cool. Mono printing with different objects always has fun results. All right, this one was a spray paint one. I think it's the first one so far that had the spray paint. It's fluorescent spray paint, so it's super bright. And then I went over it with charcoal, so you can kind of see where the blue kind of turns into like black because I rubbed charcoal over it. And then here, I think I tried to remove paint just to see what would happen, or remove the spray paint with like alcohol. And yeah, the spray paint dries really quickly, so that did not work. There are a lot of things with these studies that I did that just didn't work. But I mean, you can't know these things until you try. Like, what can you remove with alcohol? What can't you remove? Like, how quickly does spray paint dry? All those things, you know, you can only learn with trial and error. All right, here's another one where I use salt. can see where it creates those little dots. And I stamped with a wet paper towel that already had inks on it. So that kind of created an interesting pattern. But actually some of the salt is still embedded in the paper. It's hard to actually get it all out once it's, when you mix it with the inks, it kind of sticks and you have to really like get aggressive with the paper to get it out. By the way, to prepare for this challenge, I bought a huge roll of mixed media paper, and I had to measure out 100 sheets. I think I just did it 9.5 by 12, like just standard paper size. But I am not the best with cutting straight lines and measuring things, so none of them are like perfect to those dimensions, but they're close enough that it's like, you know, it's not like super noticeable, but that was a very tedious part of getting ready for this challenge. But I'm very glad I used mixed media paper, because if I used like regular paper, like all this water and wet materials, it would have just like ruined the paper and they wouldn't be around. So this one was interesting. I used tea leaves and then I put ink on top of them. And then it was very difficult to get the tea leaves out of the ink. In fact, I think some of them might still be stuck there. But it does create a really cool pattern. It almost looks like some sort of, I don't know, like, it's hard to exactly describe, but I can see different like beings. Just kind of looks like, I don't know, like a dinosaur or something. Like that's the head and that's the tail, or I don't know, like animals or something. So I think I would try that one again. I really like these like orange, like kind of natural dye colors. So those are ones that are fun to work with. All right, moving right along. This one was a piece where I just used a plastic sheet and put a bunch of paint on it and then just stamped it onto the paper. And then I decided to go over it with like a watercolor marker, a thin one, and just like make a quick face. So it's a very like abstracted face. It's almost like hard to see at some angles. I'm not sure I love the colors on this one, the red and the yellow, but it's kind of interesting how the paint left this texture. This was one where I used a fork to make some patterns, and then I guess I saw a shape of an eye and I filled that in a bit more, which maybe I shouldn't have done now looking at it. There's even some marks with a pen, a ballpoint pen. Not sure what my favorite part of this one is. I think I might have overdone it with the eyeball, but it's kind of, I don't know. You can create some cool marks with the fork. Okay. Here's one where I really went crazy. I don't know if you can even really tell what's going on in this one. If I remember correctly, I believe there was a lot of charcoal involved, but then I also had watercolor pencils that kind of smeared in with the charcoal. And then I believe I used a paintbrush to kind of like spray little bits of white paint on top. If I can get the camera to focus. So it kind of looks a little chaotic, and by a little I mean very chaotic. The few of those geometric shapes mixed in. Yeah, I feel like this was towards the middle of the challenge when I was starting to struggle, because, you know, at first you're like going strong, you're like, yeah, there's all these things I want to try. And then as you get further in, you're starting to like grasp at straws of like, okay, I tried all these initial things I was excited about. And the idea, I don't think I mentioned this, I should have mentioned this, is for each one to use a different material or a different technique or something different. So like each one has to have something new in it, which makes it a lot more challenging than if you're just kind of making 100 pieces. So you might have seen this technique online in different places. It's a pretty common one where you just put paint at the top and then you like take a palette knife or like a piece of paper and you just smear it across the whole page, and it can actually create some really cool effects. So I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out, even though it took like 2 seconds. Just like the color palette I think turned out really cool with the greens and the blues and the yellows. Get it to focus. Yeah. There are a few more of these in the mix somewhere, but here's another one I did with spray paint with the same pattern, but then I decided to like scribble on top of it and create like, make it look like 2 different stencils, even though it's the same one. Since they kind of look like faces, I decided to manipulate them on top with the, you know, adding like eyes here and like a, I don't know, angry mouth or a hat or something. This was still in my grasping at straws phase of the project, where I was like, okay, like I've already done spray paint, but it's a different stencil, so that counts, right? Using a different stencil. And I don't think I had done another one with pencil and stencil, so, or pencil and spray paint. I did one with charcoal and spray paint, which is pretty similar, but technically slightly different. This one's kind of like the potato stamp one because it's the same colors, except I had this little like toy with these like magnets, and they were like in shapes of diamonds, and the magnets like all come together to make a shape. So I just took one of them and I started stamping around. So in some places the stamp like took the whole shape, but in other parts it's like missing in the middle. So it's kind of similar to the potato one. Here's another smear one that did not turn out as well because I put paint like this way instead of just like dabbing it on, so it creates these like ugly marks. So if that's something you're trying to do, don't put paint the other way or you will end up with that not so attractive looking mark. Of course, you could also do stuff on top of this, which could make it more interesting. I don't know, like I kind of see a square here. Maybe I could take this further if I wanted to. This one, I think I was trying to go for a face. And now I'm trying to remember why it's so watery and smeared. I think I might have been using something like one of these sticks, like as a painting implement, because I can see some really thin lines there. I know there was one where I used like coffee and it left like really faint marks, but I don't think that's what I was doing with this one. Unfortunately, I don't think I even have a recording of the process with this one, so it might be lost to time what exactly I was trying to do. Maybe I like took the inks and then I put like a pencil and like went through it with the inks. I don't know, like some of those delicate lines are kind of interesting. But I guess this one's lost to time. All right, I can't say I like this one at all. It's very, very messy. It has some collage in it with triangles. I was going for like this kind of triangle vibe, and I was stamping like triangle shapes, but the stamps I used clearly didn't leave a very clear triangular impression, so it kind of just looks like random blotches of paint. A big part of this process is just being okay with ugly work and moving on and just, it's fine. Like, you'll have another piece in 2 minutes. And you know what? Like, I mean, I'm only glad I held on to these because I'm doing this video, but, you know, you end up with a ton of art and you can't hold on to everything anyway. So, here's another one that's crazy and chaotic. I don't know who exactly I was channeling here, but I did use modeling paste, and so there's a lot of texture in this one. It's not necessarily visible through the plastic. Of course, it seems to have gotten stuck to plastic. I used oil pastels in this one, but I also like smeared them around with the modeling paste and with solvent. So it did not smear in a nice manner and created all these weird, ugly colors. But it is kind of interesting how you can like cut into the paste and reveal the white of the paper underneath. So you can do some interesting effects with that. I don't know, it kind of looks a little bit like a forest or like a path in a forest if you really, really squint your eyes. So this one, I also used, actually this one I think I used fiber paste. It's a little bit different from modeling paste. Modeling paste is like, just like a very thick medium that, it doesn't have like an exact, I mean, it's just like a plasticky, like it dries kind of plasticky. This one dries with like a fibrous kind of thing. I don't know how well you can see that, but I mixed the fiber texture with the paint and then applied it, as opposed to applying it first and then putting the paint on top. So it creates a somewhat different effect, and the colors kind of smear together. I think the most interesting area is how the orange and the blue combined. And actually the orange and the yellow too. The middle part, it gets kind of muddy. All right, here's one of the really ugly ones that I still have that I'm almost like ashamed to even show. But, you know, if the color wasn't so hideous, it might have turned out okay, but it just like, the browns in this are so ugly. Although I think the shapes are kind of cool. So like, I think I applied, like I used like a paper towel, like the dabbing thing. But then I came in again and I like removed some of the paint with alcohol. And so it like removed the paint in the middle while the paint on the edges remained. And then I think with the same, you know what, actually it wasn't a paper towel. I think this one was with a coffee filter. There's some other pieces with the coffee filter that turned out a lot better. In fact, I probably should have shown them first before showing this one. So I'm kind of doing this backwards. But I think at this point I'd already used the coffee filter like 2 or 3 times for other pieces. So this one had just like the dregs of the colors when they had gotten really muddy. Will it focus? Yeah, so like in some areas it's kind of interesting where it's not quite so brown and murky. I think if it was different colors it would look a lot better. All right, so this one is mostly interesting in how the stamp, like the pattern the stamp left behind. I think it was another one where I just put paint on like a plastic sheet and I just like put it on the paper, but it left a pretty cool pattern behind. I think this top one especially, I don't know, kind of looks like a camel or something, I don't know. But other than that, I don't know. Also, because it looks like it could be like something underwater, maybe. Could probably refine this one more if I wanted. I have not been keeping count of how many of these we've already looked at, but I'm near the half-hour mark. So I want to take a break. Let's just count them up to see how many we've gotten through so far. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, so 24. So making pretty good progress. But we still got all these to go. All right, I'm gonna pause the video for now.